Welcome, deep gratitude to those of you who are joining live and to those who are tuning in later. It is an incredible honor to hold this space for our yoga and meditation community, and I thank you. So we're going to begin settling in with some quiet centering, about 12 minutes of just focusing on the breath and present moment awareness. So step one always is to get comfortable, to feel the support of the ground beneath you, whatever that means for you. If that means you're lying down, then you feel the floor or the furniture underneath your torso and your hips and pelvis. If you're sitting up, then it's the base of the torso, also hips and pelvis being supported by whatever you're sitting on, chair, blanket, pillow, bed, bathtub. It doesn't matter, but feel where you are physically present and allow that support to rise up as you descend down into it. Next step, check in with your breath. There's no need to change anything about it. Just note that you are breathing. And perhaps take a moment of joy and awe and wonder at the miracle of this breath that happens whether we notice it or not, to keep us alive. And then notice any potential or actual distractions that are in your surroundings and make peace with them. If there's something you can do about it, do that thing, close the door, dim the lights, turn your back to the mess of papers on your tape, whatever it is. Do the things that you can and let the rest be as is. And consider it part of the landscape, part of the thread in the fabric of your present moment surroundings. Notice the tendency of your mind to wander off. Make peace with that as well. And just gently return and return and return. In that moment of returning, you are doing the work. Notice the next breath that arrives. And notice the one that follows it to depart. And watch that continuous conversation between inhale and exhale, that beautiful life affirming exchange. And if in the midst of one cycle of in and out, you have been fully present, what a miracle, what a gift. Celebrate that. You might cultivate an amused observance of the mind's insistence on trailing away. Gently bring it back. Begin again to feel physical presence of your body in its surroundings and the continuous turn of breath in and out. Just a couple more minutes here. Notice your very next inhale and its very next exhale. No need to regret any moments that have been lost to a wandering mind. The only moment that matters is the very next one to which you attend. Let the breaths land lightly inside. No need to force, no need to coerce or construct or sculpt any breath ever at all. Just simply be with it. And then gather up your next inhale and your next exhale and return awareness to your immediate surroundings. And welcome once again. Tonight I'll be discussing all the ways in which we construct buffers between ourselves and the world. You know, life is a rough and tumble field of existence. And the first noble truth of the Buddha is that life is suffering. There will be pain. It's inevitable. But there are things we can do about that pain. And this truth is evident from the first moment that we exist independently in the world, right? We come in with a wail. We come in as crying infants, shocked at the nature of this new existence. We're bombarded with light and sound and unfamiliar touch. And the cry is the breath of life itself. It is the signal that we've made it through that tunnel or over that bridge into this lifetime. And if we're very lucky, then we are immediately protected and given a natural buffer between us and the harshness of this world. We're swaddled and held and fed and loved if we're lucky. And if we're super duper lucky, then that protection persists throughout the next phases. And the longer that protection exists and is given to us, the longer we're swaddled and held and bathed and fed and cared for and loved, the luckier we are. But for every single one of us, luck runs out at some point, and we experience the pain of the world again. And depending on the nature of that pain, we start to build up some resistance. We start to accumulate ways of self-protection. Now, some of these are rightfully so. They're healthy buffers, healthy armor against the world. We learn not to touch a hot stove. We learn not to step to the edge of a high ledge. We learn stranger danger. We learn to not trust someone who beckons us with candy into their van. Again, if we're lucky, we get taught these things. And our biology itself learns to protect us. We develop an immune system that wards off unwanted intrusions. So all of these things are absolutely necessary. These are the armors that we need to cloak ourselves in order to survive in this rough and tumble, ruffled and rattled world. Clothing itself is a way of protecting against the elements. All these things we need and are right and correct in our development. Some of the things we don't need. And just like an overactive immune system or an autoimmune disease where the body begins to attack things that are not, in fact, threats, our emotional existence, depending on how much trauma and what kind of protection or lack thereof we've had provided for us as we've grown up. Sometimes our emotional psychosocial armoring is extra and unnecessary. And this is where we start to get into trouble. So we begin to layer on the armor in all kinds of ways. We do this behaviorally with things like, all of the detrimental and destructive addictions in terms of behavior, gambling, sex addiction, video games, all the ways that we avoid really feeling our real selves in the world. And we do this with substance, with food, with alcohol, with drugs. Okay? And we do this with social ways where we don't allow ourselves to be vulnerable with each other. And so we react with defenses, with anger or deflection or projection. All of these ways that we create to avoid really being ourselves with each other. We do this with material accumulation, with money, with clothes, with cars, with status. We do this with food. The list is endless of the ways we armor ourselves up against the world. And so the challenge is, can we find the right blend of healing and support and assurances that we can feel okay being our true selves without all this armor, without the blankets and the cloaks of buffers between us and our true selves, which are intimately and intricately connected to every other true self, every other divine soul in the world. That's the trick. That's the challenge. And that is the key to freedom from our suffering. So let's do a little bit of practice with this. And I will invite you to come to the earliest memory of yourself, unrelated to any event, good or bad. So this is not a safe or appropriate forum to relive trauma or anything that any of the events that made us feel unsafe or in need of armor, but just come to an early memory of yourself as a small child. I have this picture in my mind, a fleeting glimpse of a memory of myself standing in my crib with some sort of entertainment that my parents were engaging in down the hall. There were people there, and I remember hearing the mamas and the papas playing on the stereo. So this is my earliest memory of myself. And this is the me that I come back to in this sort of exercise. So find that memory of yourself as early as you can, as young as you can. And if it feels appropriate and safe for you to hold this child of you in your conscious arms, in your spiritual heart, to hold this child that is you close. And as you do so, simply breathe. Perhaps you can imagine that your breath and this you child's breath sync up. So you are inhaling and exhaling together. Soothe this child. create a bond, an embrace of protection for this child. And just sit with this you child. Sit with them. Identify the appropriate pronoun. And hold this child close to you. Maybe there's a sweet, quiet song you can sing. Take these synchronized breaths. Provide for this child all of the safety and support and love that you need and have always needed and maybe didn't receive. Recognize the tendency of your present thinking mind to step out. Notice how many steps out it has taken and walk it back with the same comfort and compassion you're providing to this child of you. Just another minute or two. And then bring yourself back to your present moment awareness, the surroundings immediately in front of you. So this armoring that I've been describing can become a trap, a sort of a prison. You know, the things that we suit up with to protect ourselves turn into traps that, instead of actually protecting us, they prevent us from realizing true freedom and the divine nature of who we really are. Shakespeare was aware of this, and there's a passage in Hamlet where Hamlet is grieving his father's death. And I think it's Claudius who says something to him like, well, you seem really sad. And Hamlet then describes the trappings of grief. He says, "'Tis not alone my inky cloak, nor customary suits of solemn black, nor windy suspiration of forced breath. No, nor the fruitful river in the eye, nor the dejected behavior of the visage, the face. Together with all forms, moods, shapes of grief that can denote me truly, these indeed seem, for they are actions that a man might play. But I have that within which passeth show, these but the trappings and the suits of woe." So the things that he's showing up front are hiding the true depth of his pain from the death of his father. The trappings are allowing himself to distance himself and to distance others from what he's really feeling. It's safer that way to put on a show. The Great Gatsby discusses the trappings of wealth and the trappings of high society. And he surrounds himself with people who aren't really his friends, who don't really see his soul or feel his heart. They're people who lack empathy. Tom and Daisy Buchanan are described as people who just run around wrecking things, careless. Right? When we have the trappings of power and success. Helen Keller was quoted as saying, "Your success and happiness lie within you. External conditions are the accidents of life, its outer trappings." The great basketball star Julius Erving, Dr. J, said, "If you live an affluent lifestyle, there are all types of trappings. They're there that you have to be cognizant of, and you have to try to communicate freely and gain understanding about and keep moving on." And he said, sometimes lifestyles are chosen for us as opposed to us choosing them. And then for people in what have been traditionally marginalized communities, there are the trappings of assimilation, whereby people feel the forced pressure of going along with an identity that isn't truly theirs so that they can access social positions of relative power. The poet and activist Audre Lorde says, "It is not the destiny of Black America to repeat white America's mistakes, but we will if we mistake the trappings of success in a sick society for signs of a meaningful life." So with all these trappings, we sacrifice the true experience of being a spirit inhabited in a living, breathing, formed human body. And we risk never really being able to feel and connect with each other. And so the question then is, what are your trappings? What are the things that we hide behind? When do you feel least yourself, the most vulnerable, the most self-conscious? And then what are the things you do to armor up, to cultivate the trappings, to make you feel safe? So I'd invite you to gently peek under that hood with the reminder, with the caveat that sometimes it isn't safe to break free through those prison doors. Sometimes we need those for survival. So if and only if it feels safe to peek behind that door and sit with your vulnerable self without the trappings, who would you and could you be? That could be the question. So perhaps in these next quiet moments, look at your own trappings and see if there are any of them that you're willing or capable or feel safe to mitigate, to loosen a little bit, to attenuate some, in ways to allow the rest of you that's inside to be a little more free, a little more open, a little more available. And we'll sit with that for about 10 minutes. Maybe it's something innocuous. It's I find my trappings in my closet. I'm a fan of clothing. And I know that in the times when I feel least myself, in the most vulnerable positions, that's when I spend the most time worrying about what I'm going to wear. So that's a struggle for me. I know that that's part of what I hide behind. Just an example. They run the gamut. Find one that resonates for you, that's easy to chew on a little bit right now. And take some breaths. And feel your full presence in relative safety. So as you begin to peek behind that trap door, can you feel your heart beating there? You feel your breath moving freely there. Is it perhaps easier there to accept and mitigate and allow your surroundings to be as they are? To not be subject to your constant desires to change them. And this perhaps includes other people. Does peeking behind or underneath these trappings allow you to connect behind the trappings of others that you know you experience, and to be compassionate, to send and offer loving kindness to these beings as you do so for yourself? Stay with your breath. Invite the ever-wandering mind back to presence. Steady breath in and a long, steady breath out. Two or three more cycles of breath with as full of a sense of presence as you can conjure, with your pure heart, with your whole self. Absent the armor, absent as many layers as you feel you can afford to shed, even just for these last few moments. Gently return to your surroundings. And just the last few thoughts on this topic are that trappings really ultimately don't fix anything. The armor is the Band-Aid. And in an ideal world, in an ideal setting, we find supportive communities and just the right blend of healing guides to help us resolve and make peace with the traumas that have created the conditions where we needed to layer on the trappings. And in this way, we can be more free, we can be more of ourselves, we can be more intimate and available to others. And because without it, we end up like is described in the last lines of The Great Gatsby. We get turned back. We beat on boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. And my sincere wish for each of you is that this practice can bring you to presence. And within that presence, there is the quality of love and compassion and ease and freedom. I thank you so very much for joining me, and I'll see you again soon. Take good care.